YouTube Sidekick here. I am rolling out again in my community A-4E Skyhawk for another A-4E version 2 tutorial. We're going to continue talking about bombing today. In the last video we talked about basic bombing with low drag bombs and the bombing computer. Today we're going to talk about high drag bombs, and we're going to be doing it old school, no bombing computer. So today is going to be a bit of a composite video because I already did a whole series called Rolling Snakeyes on using high drag bombs, and there's nothing in that series that was invalidated by the version 2 release. So I'm going to go back and use some of the video that I already did, but certainly going to give you a good careful look at how to set up the weapons panel so you can drop the high drag bombs, and then we'll talk a little bit about the theory of how to do it. And then we'll go out and have a run or two on the range and see how we do. Just got to get ourselves lined up on the runway here. Get ourselves all set. Setting up for high drag bombs is really not that much different than setting up for the basic bombs. We're just going to use the weapons panel, same as we did for the low drag bombs. And really the only major difference is going to be the setting of the selector dial. So again, we have the bombs on the two inner wing pylons, so we're going to select the two pylons, pylons 2 and 4, and then we're going to go set the selector switch. This time, because we can't use the computer, we're going to use bombs and GM arm, which is basically the manual bombing setting. And then we just need to decide how many we're going to drop. Now this time we're going to drop all 4. In a string. So we're going to set the AWRS to 4. We're going to set them to ripple in singles. And then we just needed to figure out how long an interval we want. We want a pretty long interval. So we're going to set it to times 10 and a little bit more than 200 milliseconds. One thing to be very careful of in high drag bombs, do not set too short an interval. Really anything less than 50, but even anything less than about 80 milliseconds, you are asking for trouble. The bombs can interfere with each other as they come off the airplane with results that can be injurious to your health. So if you are rippling off high drag bombs, leave enough room between them. At least 80 milliseconds is my recommendation. Okay, we're going to get taken off here, and then once we get took off, while we're getting out to the range, I will cut to my earlier video that I did called Rolling Snakeyes, and we'll talk a little bit about the theory of how to drop high drag bombs, and then we'll go see if we can put it into practice. So we're just about ready to get off the runway here, and we're up and away. So cue the video. So this was an older video that I did, as I said, called Rolling Snakeyes. It was actually a series of videos. I did, I think, 3. And the idea was to take a fairly careful look at high drag bombing, not just in the A4, but in other aircraft. And if you want to know more about what's behind the stuff that I'm about to say here, you should go back and look at those videos, because we did do a fair bit of work. I'm pretty confident in the stuff we're going to do here, including the numbers, because we did do a fair bit of testing. So go take a look at that if you want to know more. But the summary is that the reason why you might want to use a high drag bomb attack is because it is the best kind of attack to use if you want to fly at low level and high speed. And of course, you might want to do that if you're flying into an area that's very heavily defended. So if you want to fly low and fast in order to avoid the flak, then you want to use high drag bombs. So you need to know the techniques for using it. Now, in the A4, the unfortunate thing is using high drag bombs means you don't get to use the bombing computer. So we do have to talk about manual methods of bombing, and that's really what the whole series of videos in Rolling Snakeyes was about, coming up with a technique that we could use reliably in the A4 to execute a low-altitude, high-speed attack with high-drag bombs. So let's just take a look at how you do that. But the way the high-drag bombing works is you basically pick a sight angle that you want to use based on speed and altitude that you expect to fly, and then when that aim point crosses the target, you release the bomb. Now, in order to be accurate, you have to make sure, of course, that you fly at the speed that you expected to, at the altitude you expected to, and you do have to fly level. Now, none of those things on their own sound like they would be too difficult, but you do have to remember you're flying at 500 feet off the deck at 500 knots and trying to aim the aircraft at a point target as well, which is why high drag bombing takes a bit of practice. So what we did in the Rolling Snakeyes series was we went out and through a bunch of trial and error, we figured out settings for speed and altitude and sight angle that basically seemed to work. And you can see that we created the following table. And the last line of that table, not coincidentally, are the numbers that you will find in the A-4E knee board and the A-4E manual. So the objective is to fly at 400 feet off the deck at 450 knots and use a sight angle of 160 mils. Now, I don't actually take the sight and set it to 160 mils. I show you the system that I use here. I actually set the sight to minus 100 mils. Which means that my aim mark is going to be the minus 60 mil rung on the ladder there, just below the bottom of the first circle. But it also means that the top of the sight, the 100 mil ring at the top, is going to be effectively where your horizon is. So that works out well. So the other thing that we did was actually come up with some rules of thumb to figure out how to adjust your drop point if you're not exactly at the speed and altitude that you wanted to be at, because frankly, that's pretty difficult to achieve. So the idea was that you'd have some rules of thumb. You could kind of make real-time adjustments as you're approaching the target. And what it basically amounts to is that the higher you are, the higher your sight angle has to be because you're higher up. But also the slower you are, the higher your sight angle has to be because you have to wait longer to drop the bombs. And it turns out that 100 feet of altitude is worth about 50 mils on the sight. And 100 knots is also worth about 50 mils on the sight. And so you can juggle those two as you're approaching the target to try and come up with the right drop point. So to summarize, we're going to go out to the range. We're going to dive on the target with our sight set to minus 100 mils. We're going to use minus 60 as the aim mark, and we're going to change the aim mark upwards if we're a little bit high and also upwards if we're a little bit slow. And we're going to try and do all of that in real time as we're approaching the target. So let's go out to the range and see if we can make that system work. So we're getting set up for our first run here. I've got the sight already set to minus 100. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to be attacking that target on the test range that we always use that has the buildings in it. I'm going to come at it from the corner, and I'm going to see if I can line it up so that the big white hangar building lines up with the building behind it. See if I can drop the string of bombs across all of the buildings. And I think that's indicative of the kind of stuff you want to do with high drag bombs. They're really best suited for like linear targets like this, like a road or a convoy or a series of buildings. They're really not ideal if you're trying to hit a point target. And I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the video. Some sample missions you can go fly to actually test that out. But here we are getting ourselves set up on the target. Got to make sure we get down low, so we're diving down. Got to line up before we lose sight of the target behind the trees. Getting down, coming under 1,000 feet. Got my alarm set to 500, so when I hit that 500 alarm, I know that I need to start pulling up to 400. Watch the speed. Speed's a little slow. We're a little high, a little slow, a little high, slow, a little high. That's kind of going to cancel out. And all right, not bad, but a little bit. We dropped a little bit early and a little bit short. And that's because we were a little bit high and a little bit slow, and I just didn't adjust in real time as much as I should have. So we still did manage to hit the target because we used a string of bombs, and I think that's going to be fairly typical of what happens with high drag bombs. You're going to depend on the fact that you're dropping a line of them to make sure that you hit the target. But let's go around one more time, see if we can hit a little better. I'm also going to increase the delay between the interval just a bit. I want to try and cover both those two buildings. I need the bombs to be a little bit farther apart, so we're up to about 350 milliseconds now. So we just need to go out here, swing around again, and basically do that same approach diagonally across the square. Oh yeah, I'm going to turn off APC here because I don't need to have that on. It's just my HOTAS always puts it on. Okay, so we don't have that light up front as a distraction either. So let's go around again, see if we can get just a little bit closer to where we want the bombs and see if we can cover that whole compound this time. So as I said, I have released a number of missions where you get to practice high drag bombing, and if you stick around to the end of the video, I'll point you to those missions where you can actually go and practice this with some opposition. Of course, you can always come out to the range, practice anytime you want. Okay, we're coming around and down again, lining up on the corner. Just get that building right off the top of the ladder. The ladder points at the building, so now I can get down low enough. I'm going to lose sight of it, but I know when I come up, I'm going to be lined up. Here we come, coming down to 1,000. Going to get the alarm at 500. Try and level out. Okay, we're a little low this time. Low, a little fast. Not much, though. Pretty close. Pretty close, and pickle. All right. Well, that was a more acceptable result. So as you can see, that time we were much closer to the 400 feet and 450 knots. We pretty much pickled right on 60 and dropped them right across the compound just like we wanted to. So that's a pretty successful run. Oh, okay, we've practiced on the range, and I think we're getting pretty good at this high drag, low altitude bombing thing. Where can we go and actually practice that in a more realistic scenario? So, well, Sidekick has you covered in that regard. And so I just want to take a look at another old video that I did that's also attached to a mission. It's a video that was called The Breaking Point, and it also comes with a mission that is still on my Discord channel if you want to drop by there and pick it up. It was a low-level bombing mission that was set during the Arab-Israeli conflict of 1973, so the Yom Kippur War, so it's on the Syria map. As you can see, there was a good briefing provided. The video actually had some history as well if you want to go check it out. And the basic idea is that we're going to do a low-level, high-speed ingress into the Golan Heights, trying to take out a SAM site essentially behind Syrian lines. So we're basically going to use the kind of format of attack we just practiced. So it's pretty exciting. Lots of low-level flying, with a few seconds of stark terror at the end as you try to take out a SAM site at 400 feet off the deck. But as you can see, it can be done. So, yeah, low-level high drag bombing is definitely something that's worth learning how to do, if for no other reason than, well, frankly, it's a hoot. So if you do decide to give it a try, drop by the Discord channel, let us know how you do, and see how others have done. There is a Hall of Fame for that tipping point mission. Maybe you want to go back and give it a try and see if you can get yourself on the leaderboard. For now, this is going to be Sidekick, signing off.